Hey everybody, Dimitri here with Cirque Supply with another video, an instructional video this time, on how to put together your DIY trim rings for your Vanspeed capsules. Now before you begin, you're going to want to gather a few key items that are not included with the kit. Number one is a power drill or an impact gun. Number two is a Phillips head drive for the actual power drill. A drill bit to drill holes. We recommend 1/8 inch or smaller. Last but not least, some wood glue to help bring these parts together and add a little strength to the assembly. Now, as you take a look at the goods, so to speak, you'll notice everything has a label on it. Driver's side, passenger side. Letters A and B are the driver's side typically, and C and D are the passenger side. These parts also have arrows that point to the corresponding joining faces, and it's a little harder to see, but on the other sides, the long base sections for your sprinter kits, the actual labels are inside of the dado. So you're going to look closely there to find out which letters you're working with. Everything else is pretty much self-explanatory. I'm going to go through it with you today anyway. We're going to join the letters together, glue and screw them, and then you should be done pretty quick. Now as I start working here, you'll notice I've got A1 carved into this lower section here and a corresponding A1 right there. These sections are going to join. Now it's easier to tell with black hex, a little harder to tell with pre-finished maple, but there is a finished side to all of this. The letters should not be visible from inside your capsule at any point. So I'm going to take the unfinished side and make sure it's always on the outside here. Now, one quick detail to note, all of these corners on every single ring is a different depth. So if at any point you notice that these do not line up perfectly or doing something wrong, go back and double check which pieces you're joining. Every single quadrant is a different depth. I will double check that. Before we move a little too far, I'm going to take the glue here and we're going to put a nice thin bead here. I try to aim for something like 1/8 of an inch or less if I can get any damn glue out of this thing. There we go. And this is a point of contention here. We like to smear the glue a little bit before we apply it. Wipe it under our tables because naturally we're messy here. But you can go ahead and set this in place and you have a nice perfect fit. The dado fits that section, and as good practice we like to tip things over. And then we will shoot these screws in from the back side. You can use clamps to do this, or with quite a bit of pressure you can put a screw through that pre-drilled hole into this piece. I'm going to show you a little trick on how to do that straight every time. Now you could go crazy and start screwing the screw directly into the piece of wood. We recommend you don't. Just to be safe, take your drill bit and do a nice little pilot hole. I wouldn't go the full depth, but with just enough to guide it in the beginning, it'll be very easy for you to get the screw seated properly and avoid splitting the wood. So I've got my screw here now. Let's see if we get that in the shot perfect. I'm going to put in the pre-drilled hole, apply pressure. There you go, snapped right together in place. Excuse the loud noises, can't really do much to filter those out. Make sure everything is flush here, and let's move on to one of the other corners. Now we've moved on to this next section here, and you realize you may not actually have the luxury of being able to apply glue to this section all the time. It is totally fine to take your glue and put a nice thin bead, if you can get it out the damn bottle. There we go. Put a nice thin bead on here, smear it. It's going to do the same job. We're going to find our finished side, and again, just to reiterate, we've got a label here, A2, going to correspond with label A2, and we're going to put it in place. I'm going to swing around the back now, pre-drill the hole, shoot the screw in, and see how it looks after I'm done. Now this next part is not necessary, but pro tip, grab some spoil board material, something you don't feel bad drilling into, and a clamp. You can get these anywhere, really, Harbor Freight, Amazon, Home Depot, or Lowe's. And I'm going to go ahead and fasten my first piece in place, take my drill bit, and start putting those holes through. Now before I dive into the next step, you definitely want to double check this. This is very important. You're going to have two surfaces to this trim ring. One of them is going to be on a perfectly flat plane, and the other one is going to be all kinds of different depths. So flip your trim ring vertical, take a look at it from the side. Whichever side is very straight, perpendicular to the surface you're working on, that's the side that gets these bracers. That's the side that's going to touch your wall panels. That's the side you want to make sure you screw this to. If you get it backwards, your trim rings just aren't going to fit right. So be sure to check out that step before moving on. And now that I'm here, that clamp we used earlier is going to be super handy. You don't have to do this. Again, it's recommended. It's not absolutely necessary, but I'm going to put a little bit of glue on this inside surface. I'm going to take my clamp, get it ready to go, and this bracer fits on just like that. Let's see if we can do this two-handed. Well, I guess if you can't, probably have no business building cabinets. Just kidding. But here we go. So clamp is on. Line it up nice and flush. Now you can go ahead and pre-drill. If you're gonna pre-drill, I'd warn you not to go too far. So just give it a little tap. Right there. There you go. If you have an excessively long drill bit, probably wouldn't be a good idea to go all the way through the wood into your trim ring. But let's go ahead and screw this guy in. Now, if you get to this point and for some reason your pieces have separated, another pro tip, just go ahead and back the screw out a little bit and then shoot it right back in. Should close the gap nicely. You don't want to drive this too far. I did mention earlier these screws are too long to penetrate inside. Here's a look at how they sit when they're in here. You're about 3/16 from the inside edge, so you're totally good to go. We can remove this clamp and shoot in the other side. I apologize if I get in the way of the shot here. But there we go. Line it up. Awesome. So now that we got one corner on, I'm going to repeat the process for all the other corners. Put those long strips here at the bottom and at the top. We'll do the other ring and then we're all finished. So now that your trim ring is assembled, the next question you have naturally is, what about my backing? Well, there's a few different ways to actually do the backing. We do have backings available for purchase if you want us to CNC cut, kind of like a pre-finished maple or black hex or bamboo backing. That's no problem at all, but if you want to make your own, the easiest way to do it would be to simply set this down over a piece of wood that you want to use as your backing, and you can trace this outside perimeter on the back side of your ring as your cut path. When we put on our backings, we cut out for the window and we slap it over the window, and then we add a little bit of an extra tail to the backing all around to put our insulation in place. And that way, when you slap the backing over, you have quite a bit of freedom. If you miscut or something like that, it's just going to cover it up nicely. I wouldn't recommend going any thicker than a 1/4 inch backing. If you're going to upholster, maybe consider sticking to thinner foam or not using foam at all. But overall, the hardest part of the process is actually done now. If you ordered one of our wall panel kits compatible for Vanspeed capsules, you need fear not. This is compatible right out of the box, so the opening of your wall panel will coincide perfectly with the opening of this. We have a minimum of 6 screws added to this. I would say be generous, add more if you can. If not, no problem. The kit does include hardware to mount the actual trim rings in place. But keep in mind the hardware is only 1.25 inches long. Plus with the finish washers, you actually only get about 1 inch of hold through your wall panels. But with all that in mind, the hardest is done now. You can go ahead and mount these in your vehicle and get on to your next adventure. Now, if you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, please let us know if you have any requests on future videos that we might do that could help you in your van build process. We'd love to hear from you. In any case, thanks for sticking around, thanks for watching, and as always, happy building.